Why does it always have to be Georgia? Why does Georgia always have to be the one to ruin my fun? I go back to like my childhood and remembering Colt Brennan and Hawaii and seeing them get into a big bowl game, and then Georgia was just like, nah, let's just stomp on them. That's exactly what happened here. They just stomped on TCU 65-7. Kyle, I know we expected Georgia to win, but you have to be a little surprised at this.
At 65-7 in a national championship game, yeah, I was definitely surprised to see the margin be that massive of a blowout. The one thing Texas can claim, though, is that they did beat the eventual two-time national champion Georgia Bulldogs not that long ago. I mean, it was in between the first, to a national championship game and winning these two. So,
oh yeah, we fired the
you.
head coach that did that, though.
Yeah, you did do that, and your quarterback declared you back, and then you guys were decidedly not back. But
on the bright side, had one of the greatest all-time animal in sports moments between Bevo and Uga.
This is true. Yes, memes will forever be written based on that. I'll also add to the mix of Georgia ruining things for you. You were the Tennessee guy earlier this year. You wanted to believe that Tennessee was the new, fun, exciting toy in college football, and that Hendon Hooker would be the person to end Alabama supremacy, and then Georgia just wiped them off the face of the earth with a blowout once they finally made it to Athens.
Yep.
Georgia's a machine, man. At least the modern Georgia is a machine, and we can talk more about Georgia or like what this means in the landscape of college football later. But yeah, I guess Georgia's the team that kind of ruins your fun a little bit.
So the expectation is they're going to be the favorites next year again, right?
I assume so. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to move around, like obviously portal type stuff and maybe some recruits decommit or whatever the case may be. But yeah, most likely Georgia will be the favorites next year, or they'll be co-favorites with either an Alabama or Ohio State type at the top. But yeah, I assume Georgia will be the favorites next year. And I don't know if that means anything. Preseason college football rankings usually aren't super reliable in terms of like predicting championship. Case in point, TCU. But at the same point, I suspect Georgia will be the favorites, despite the fact that they have to replace 4 first-round picks on defense and their two-time national champion quarterback.
Well, they won't have to replace Brock Bowers. He's back, and he's still very steadily. He dominated this game. Everyone dominated this game. So you talk about two-time championship quarterback Stetson Bennett. I mean, out the gate, big-time run, big-time throw, immediately puts it on TCU. And I'll be honest, I wasn't even locked into this game as much as others. Like I remember like taking it like 5 minutes looking away from the TV. And then next thing I know, it's 38-7.
Mm-hmm.
That went from like 17-7 to 38-7 like that. And then every time as I started to watch it more and more casually as the blowout continued, then it just kept getting worse. I just didn't think this was going to keep getting worse like this. This was a statement win by Georgia. This is putting their stamp on any dynasty talks, because I know we have a lot of conversation about premature dynasties. And I think at this point, Georgia, multiple time champion, probably going to be back in the conversation next year and the year after that and the year after that. I think I'm okay with having that conversation as Georgia as a dynasty, especially as we move post Alabama.
So I think Georgia's already a dynasty. And the way I phrase it more than dynasty is phrasing it as a machine. So like in college football, the kind of dirty secret of the sport is that there's really only 30 to 40 players in each recruiting class that really make an impact. And the 4 and 4.5 star guys kind of get spread out to all the different programs where like everyone sent someone to the draft last year. I was making fun of you for Texas not putting anyone in the draft last year, but like literally everyone puts someone in the draft. So like the players who like you identify as juniors in high school are going to be future first round picks. There's really about 30 of them every year. And some of them were going to Georgia in the past. Again, like Georgia went to a national championship game in 2017. They had AJ Green, like they put first round picks into the NFL. What's interesting about the change now is that some of those guys who I think previously might have gone to Alabama or might have gone to Ohio State are now starting to go to Georgia. And that's how, like, last year we could name like 7 players on the Georgia defense, right? Like they were the best defense in college football. It was Jordan Davis. It was Nakobe Dean. It was Trayvon Walker. It was Quay Walker. It was Devontae Wyatt. Like we could name a bunch of players on that defense. And then this year's Georgia team, which seemingly dominated even harder than last year's team, was pretty much a no-name defense. And yet they were still one of the 3 best in the country. And I think that's the sign that the machine has now swung its favor over to Georgia, that they are getting the recruits that Clemson was getting for 4 years. They're getting some of the Alabama guys. I said on my podcast that 5-6 years ago, maybe a guy like Jalen Carter goes to Alabama instead of Georgia. Jalen Carter, who, by the way, I looked up his high school scouting report, and he was being compared to Deron Payne as a junior in high school. So they were projecting him to the first round long before he got to Georgia, and he's going to obviously be a top 5 pick this year. So I think that's where it's kind of changed. The machine is clearly there for Georgia, and regardless of whether they're able to keep it up or not, like, they already got 2 national championships out of it, man. And the last time any team won back-to-back national championships was Nick Saban's 5th and 6th year at Alabama in 2011 and 2012. And Kirby Smart's in his 7th or 8th year at Georgia. So they're kind of matching the Alabama pace in terms of results. And I don't see any reason why the recruits will stop coming.
Now, we got to give Stetson Bennett his due. Obviously, he's been at the forefront of these national championship runs. However, what gives you even more optimism if you're a Georgia fan is objectively, pro comps, everything with Stetson Bennett, you would say he's not a premium quarterback, or at least premium at the next level. Eventually, those recruits will start coming in the door too, which kind of makes this whole machine even that much scarier of a possibility if they could attract a high-level quarterback prospect. In theory, this could continue to go on and on. You look at what because Alabama, obviously, at the start of their championship dynasty, they weren't attracting the greatest quarterbacks. But then soon enough, that turns into Tua, that turns into Jalen Hurts, that turns into Mac Jones, 3 guys who are already in the pros. And Bryce Young too. Georgia still hasn't even played that card yet, and we'll see how that kind of affects them moving to the continued championship runs.
Well, they have played that card once. Remember, they actively chose Jake Fromm over Justin Fields. That's a real thing that happened. And Georgia probably was fine with it at the end of the day. And that's kind of weird to think about. But yeah, I mean, Alabama's the comp that we're going to make here, but like, they're the only team you can point to that be like, they won championships with Jake Coker and Mac Jones, and they also won championships with Tua and Bryce Young. Oh, they didn't win one with Bryce Young, but like, point standing, they played in a national championship game. But like, they're the team that did that. They're the team that won without quarterbacks and won with quarterbacks. And look, Stetson Bennett, for all the jokes and him being the mailman and him owning a Kia, Subaru, Hyundai dealership in the Blackshear area after he finishes college, like, for all the jokes about that, Stetson Bennett was a damn good quarterback the last 2 years. And I'm not saying like he should have made the Heisman ceremony, because he shouldn't. And I'm not saying that he was a star in the making, because like, I think, last year's Heisman Trophy that we gave to Bryce Young was only because we couldn't give it to one player on the Georgia defense. So because of that, they all kind of split. In my mind, that Heisman Trophy went 7 ways to the players on the Georgia defense. But Stetson Bennett, like, for all the jokes that we made, like, he got the keys to the machine and he didn't crash it. Like, he didn't make everything fall apart. And I think he deserves immense credit for that. Not as much credit as the 5-star guys that have come in on that team, but I mean, Stetson Bennett's the guy you can hold up, right? That's kind of the perks of being the quarterback. And I mean, damn, if it isn't an amazing story. Chris Fowler said it on the broadcast, which is like, in Stetson Bennett's wildest dreams, you couldn't have imagined that this would be the ending. From junior college, walk on at Georgia, to the guy who we were making jokes about when we first learned about him, when he came in for Fromm in the SEC championship game 4 years ago, to now 2-time national champion quarterback, which like only Tim Tebow and Matt Leinart can say in the last 40 years of college football.
Looking ahead with college football playoff expansion, the moves of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, NIL money continuing to enter the sport, do you think that this Georgia dynasty has any potential pitfalls coming towards it?
Yeah, it's really, really hard to win in college football, because you can have, like, Ohio State's had the machine for 8 years, and they've done it with 2 different coaches where they just keep getting the 4.5 and 5-star guys, where it's like Wilson and Olave go to the NFL. So enter Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. Then you lose Jackson Smith and Jigba, so slide in Egbuka, and he's even better. Like, Remember that run they had where there was like Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young back to back to back like that? Like Ohio State's had the machine, and in the last 10 years, it's been one national championship and they played in a second one, and that's about it. So like, even when you have the machine, it doesn't guarantee results. Georgia's already got the 2 national championships in the bag, which again, like Clemson only won 2 national championships for all the winning that they did. It's already an immense success for Georgia. But if we're going to start doing the comparison shopping to Alabama, like it's really, really hard to win in college football. Remember when Alabama won 2 straight national championships, they were the number 1 team in the country. They were 12-0. And then the kick 6 happened. Like the most stupid, chaotic play in the history of college football cost Alabama a three-peat. So it's really, really hard to keep winning in college football. Georgia knows this. They were a 50-yard field goal by Ohio State away from not even making this game. So the only pitfall, they're going to be at the top every year, but the only pitfall is it's just really, really hard to win in college football.
Now, I would have been interested in that game, TCU versus Ohio State. Maybe we can get a double elimination play for second place. Anyway, guys, well, let us know what you thought of the national championship. Celebrate if you are a Georgia Bulldogs fan. This is your night. The Georgia sports curse forever buried. It's gone away. It's done with. After the Braves, it was over. I guess you still got to wait on the Falcons and Hawks. But anyway, guys, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social medias at SlumpBusterPod, at SlumpBuster Podcast. From Juju and Kyle, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time.